The third eye opens when the mind becomes silent, not when you try to force it. This is the secret seekers have missed for centuries. In their desperation to awaken something mystical, they push, they strain, they fight with their own being. And the more they force, the more distant it becomes. Because the third eye is not a door that responds to pressure. It is a flower that opens only in stillness. A rose does not bloom because you pull at its petals. It blooms because the right conditions surround it. Sunlight, soil, water, time, and silence. Your inner vision works the same way. It awakens only when the storm within settles. When thoughts, like restless birds, stop flapping and finally return to their nest. When the noise of ambition softens. When the echo of fears fades. When you're no longer running from yourself. This silence is not an emptiness but a fullness, a rich, alive, pulsating space where you meet your own presence directly. Most people try to force their awakening because they are impatient. They want to achieve enlightenment the way they achieve success. They want to conquer the inner world with the same aggression they use in the outer world. But consciousness is not something you conquer. It reveals itself only when you surrender your attempts to control it. And this is the paradox. The harder you try to open the third eye, the more tightly closed it becomes. Because trying is a tension, and tension blinds. Awareness is a relaxation, and relaxation sees. You cannot open the third eye with the energy of effort. You can open it only with the energy of ease. Sit quietly, breathe, let the body loosen, allow thoughts to come and go without grabbing them. Let emotions rise and fall like waves that belong to the ocean, not to you. Slowly, gently, lovingly, the mind begins to melt, and in that melting, something inside you becomes clear again. There is a moment, subtle, delicate, when you feel a shift, not in your eyes, but behind them. As if something is looking through you, rather than you looking through it. You feel more present, more awake, more aware of the space within and around you. This is not imagination. This is the beginning of inner sight. It arises naturally when the mind stops covering it with noise. Awakening happens in the pauses, in the breath between thoughts, in the moments when you are simply witnessing, without judgment, without desire, without fear. These tiny gaps of awareness are like openings in a wall, allowing light to pass through. And as these gaps grow, the inner light grows. The third eye begins to shine through, not as an event, not as an explosion, not as some supernatural miracle, but as a deepening clarity, a quiet intuition, an inner knowing that does not need proof. It feels like a homecoming, like returning to a part of yourself that has always been there waiting. And the silence becomes your teacher. A sacred silence that speaks without words, guides without pushing, reveals without demanding. This silence is the soil in which awakening grows. You do not need to force anything. You only need to create space, a space where the mind can relax, where awareness can breathe, where inner vision can rise on its own. And when it does, you understand that it was never closed. You were only too loud to notice it. Awakening is a natural unfolding. It happens when you stop becoming and start being. This single truth carries the essence of every spiritual journey. Yet most people miss it because they are obsessed with becoming something, becoming better, becoming wiser, becoming awakened, becoming extraordinary. They chase transformation the way the world has taught them to chase success, endlessly, breathlessly, blindly. But awakening does not respond to your chase. It responds to stillness. It begins the moment you stop running towards some imagined future and come home to the simple, naked presence of this moment. Becoming is always in the future. It creates distance between you and yourself. It whispers, "You are not enough yet. You must achieve, improve, climb. And every time you believe this voice, you step further away from your own center. The mind loves becoming because becoming allows it to survive. It feeds on effort, on plans, on the dream of perfection. But the soul knows only being. The soul blooms in the now, not in the someday. There comes a time, quiet, delicate, when you realize you have been carrying an unnecessary weight. The weight of who you think you should be. The weight of who the world told you to become. And in a moment of deep honesty, you set it down. You stop trying. You stop fighting. You stop sculpting yourself like a project. And suddenly, in that softness, in that surrender, something inside you opens, grace enters, presence awakens. You feel yourself not as a becoming, but as a being, whole, complete, alive. Awakening is not an achievement. It is a recognition, a remembering. The seed has always contained the flower, the wave has always contained the ocean. The light has always existed behind the clouds of your effort. When you stop trying to improve yourself, you discover the self that never needed improvement. The self that was waiting beneath layers of ambition, fear, conditioning, and noise. Being is effortless. Close your eyes, breathe, and sink into yourself. Notice the stillness beneath your thoughts. Notice the space beneath your emotions. Notice the silence beneath your desires. This stillness is your home. This space is your truth. This silence is your essence. It does not depend on who you will become. It exists in who you already are. Awakening is the art of relaxing into your now. Nature, of letting life flow through you without resistance, of allowing your heart to open without forcing it. You stop becoming, you stop interfering, you stop manipulating the river of your inner life. And in that absence of interference, the river becomes clear again. The mud settles, the water shines. You see deeper, feel deeper, understand deeper. There is a profound beauty in simply being. A peace that does not depend on achievement. A joy that does not depend on success. A light that does not depend on effort. When you pause, when you breathe, when you allow yourself to exist without needing to be more, you taste the purity of your own consciousness. This taste awakens something ancient within you. Something that has been silent but not dead. Something that has been patient, waiting for you to stop running. Awakening is gentle. It arrives like a dawn, not a lightning bolt. Slowly, quietly, but undeniably. And it happens because you let go, because you accept, because you surrender the endless climb, and finally sit with yourself fully, honestly, lovingly. When you stop becoming and start being, the world inside you shifts. You enter the present not as a visitor but as a resident. And in that presence your true self begins to unfold on its own, naturally, effortlessly, beautifully. Awareness sharpens your inner vision. It is the only real technique. Everything else you have been told, rituals, methods, complicated spiritual exercises, they are only preparations. They may calm the surface, they may discipline the mind, they may create the right atmosphere, but the real transformation comes only from awareness. Awareness is the flame that burns through illusion. Awareness is the light that reveals what has always been hidden in plain sight. Awareness is the only true tool, because it is not something you do, it is something you become when you be. Come aware, a shift happens inside you. A subtle but powerful shift. Instead of being lost in your experiences, you begin to witness them. Instead of drowning in thoughts, you begin to notice thoughts. Instead of being controlled by emotions, you begin to observe emotions. And in this witnessing, a strange clarity appears. A clarity that was always there, but covered by layers of unconsciousness, Awareness is like cleaning the dust from a mirror. The mirror was never faulty. It only needed attention. Your inner vision has always been pure, but it has been buried under habits, fears, desires, memories, and automatic reactions. When you become aware, layer by layer, the dust falls away. And the more aware you are, the sharper your inner vision becomes. Imagine walking through your life half asleep, reacting, repeating, rushing, never really looking within. Then imagine suddenly awakening in the middle of your ordinary day. The same room, the same people, the same breath. Yet everything feels new, sharper, more vivid. Nothing outside has changed, but inside a new eye has opened. This eye sees without judgment. This eye sees without fear. This eye sees the truth. Awareness is powerful because it is simple. It does not require belief. It does not require effort. It requires presence. Just watching, just witnessing, just being there for your own life as it unfolds moment by moment. In that watching, you begin to notice things you have never seen before. The tension in your shoulders, the restlessness in your breath, the speed of your thoughts, the heaviness of your desires, the patterns you repeat unconsciously. You begin to see how you imprison yourself. And when you see the prison clearly, the door begins to open on its own. Awareness dissolves illusions, like the sun dissolves darkness. You do not have to fight the darkness. You do not have to shout at it, push it away, or fear it. You simply turn on the light. Awareness is that light. And when the light shines, the shadows disappear without resistance. In your moments of silence, try simply watching your breath, not controlling it, not forcing it, just watching. Feel the rise and fall of your chest. Feel the cool air entering your nose. Feel the warm air leaving. As you watch, something softens inside you. Your mind slows, your presence deepens, and in that deepening you become more alive, more awake, more connected to your own inner world. Awareness is the only technique because it alone transforms you from the inside. It does not shape your behavior, it reveals your being. It does not change your personality, it awakens your consciousness. And once your consciousness awakens, your inner vision becomes sharp enough to see through lies, illusions, conditioning, and fear. You begin to see life not through the mind, but through clarity, through truth, through the silent intelligence of your soul. Awareness is not something you practice. It is something you grow into. It becomes your way of living, your way of breathing, your way of seeing. And when awareness becomes your companion, every step turns into insight. Every moment becomes meditation. And your inner vision becomes the guiding light that leads you home. The more you drop illusions, desires, and fears, the clearer your inner perception becomes. Most people believe clarity comes from gathering more knowledge, more techniques, more experiences. But true clarity is not something you add to yourself. It is something that appears when you begin to remove what never belonged to you. Illusions, desires, fears, these are the clouds that cover your inner sky. They distort your vision, bend your truth, and keep your perception muddy. Let them go, even for a moment, and suddenly the sky inside you becomes vast and transparent. Illus. Ions are the stories you tell yourself, about who you should be, about how life should unfold, about what others must think of you. These stories are comforting because they feel familiar, but they limit your sight. They create a world that does not exist, and then imprison you within it. When you drop illusions, you begin to see reality as it is, not as your mind imagines it to be. There is freedom in that seeing, a freedom that expands your perception like fresh air entering a closed room. Desires are the chains that keep your eyes pointed outward. chasing something just beyond your reach. Desire always whispers, not here, not now, somewhere else, sometime else. It keeps you in a constant state of longing, and longing blinds. It keeps your focus on what is missing instead of what is present. When you let go of desire, even for a breath, you return to yourself. You return to the moment. You return to a space where clarity naturally arises, unforced, uninvited, simply because you have stopped running. And then there are fears, perhaps the thickest veil of all. Fear narrows your vision. Fear makes your world small. Fear fills your mind with imagined outcomes, imagined dangers, imagined failures. It creates shadows that seem real, though they are only projections of your own trembling. When fear loosens its grip, even slightly, you begin to see how much of your inner world has been colored by it. And when you see fear clearly, it loses its power. Fear can only dominate you when you remain unconscious of it. The moment you let go of these three illusions, desires, fears, even partially, a doorway opens. A new depth of perception becomes available. You begin to sense things you once ignored. You begin to recognize truth without effort. You begin to feel life with a sharper, more refined awareness. It is as if the fog lifts and suddenly the landscape of your inner world reveals itself in detail and beauty. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine stripping away every expectation placed upon you, every dream you have been forced to chase, every fear you have silently carried. Imagine standing naked in your own being, nothing to hide, nothing to reach for, nothing to escape. In that nakedness, a strange clarity arises. You see yourself not through the eyes of the world, but through the eyes of awareness. You see your strengths without pride, your wounds without shame, your truth without distortion. Clarity does not come from becoming more. It comes from becoming less. Less entangled with illusions, less driven by desire, less paralyzed by fear. And in becoming less, you become more present, more conscious, more deeply connected to your own essence. There is a purity that emerges when the unnecessary falls away, a lightness, a transparency. And it is in this transparency that your inner perception sharpens. You start to understand things intuitively. You start to sense what is right for you without overthinking. You start to hear the silent guidance of your own soul, a guidance that was always there, hidden beneath the noise. When illusions dissolve, you see truth. When desires fade, you feel peace. When fear drops, you discover your courage. And in that space, clear, open, unburdened, your inner perception shines like a polished mirror, reflecting reality with precision, depth, and grace. The third eye is not something you achieve. It's something you remember. This truth is simple, yet profoundly liberating. Because everything in your life has taught you to achieve, to climb, to earn, to struggle for what you desire. You've been conditioned to believe that awakening is another mountain to conquer, another reward waiting at the end of effort. But inner vision does not arise from effort. It arises from recognition, a remembrance of something ancient within you, something you were born with, something you have always carried silently inside your being. The third eye is not a gift given to a few. It is the natural state of every consciousness before the world begins its work of distraction. When you were a child, there were moments, small fleeting moments, when your perception felt wide, open, pure, when you saw things without the filters of fear, desire, or judgment, when you felt life intensely, innocently, without trying to interpret or control it. That was the third eye in its natural state, not mystical, not dramatic, simply awake, but as you grew, the world layered itself upon your inner vision. Conditioning, expectations, beliefs, responsibilities. You became so busy learning how to survive that you forgot how to see. You began to live through the mind instead of through awareness. You started believing that truth is outside, in books, in teachers, in traditions, forgetting that the deepest truth is already residing in your center, waiting to be remembered. The third eye is not achieved, because achievement belongs to the ego, and the ego cannot awaken what it itself is blocking. The ego wants to own awakening, to claim it, to decorate itself with it. But the third eye opens only when the ego loosens its grip. Only when you stop trying to become special, supernatural, spiritual. Only when you stop searching outside and turn inward with quiet curiosity, with gentle presence. Remembering is a soft process. It is like hearing a distant melody you once knew by heart. You don't learn it, it comes back to you. It rises from the depths of your own being, not from effort but from openness. Not from pushing but from relaxing. Not from striving but from sinking into yourself. Close your eyes for a moment, breathe, and feel that subtle space behind your thoughts, that watching presence, that has always been there, in your laughter, in your tears, in your darkest nights and brightest moments. That presence is your third eye. It is the part of you that has never been confused, never been afraid, never been lost. It is the silent witness that has observed every chapter of your life without judgment. You do not need to activate it. You only need to notice it. You only need to return to it. Imagine peeling away the layers of who you think you are, releasing the weight of your past, softening the grip of your desires. Imagine letting go of every identity the world has placed on you. Beneath all that remains something pure, untouched, luminous. That is the vision of the third eye, not a new ability, but the essence of what you are. When you remember this inner sight, life changes. You no longer move blindly through your days. You begin to sense a deeper intelligence guiding your steps. You feel connected to something vast, something eternal. You begin to trust your intuition, your inner voice, your silent knowing, because it comes from the place that cannot be confused by illusions.